Hey, it's me, your boy Blue Gets again, and today I'll be doing a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier analysis video, and I know it's been like 3 months since I've done one. Also, some of you may notice, laptop's looking kind of different because my laptop finally shat the bed last week, but luckily I managed to actually back everything up on this laptop. So anyways, let's get started. First off, we have ninjas, and ninjas, they basically have many different iterations. They've existed since OG Yu-Gi-Oh! And in OG Yu-Gi-Oh! They mostly focused on the flip effects. And then in Zexal, they focused on Xyz plays. And I think in Art 5, there was a ninja. Yeah, there was some guy who used ninjas, but they didn't really do too much with it. But recently, recently Konami went back to actually focusing on the flip effect ninjas. So that's what this is. Anyways, let's get started. First, for the pros, they have great monsters. Hanzo is still great despite even in every iteration of the ninja archetype, and we also got new ninja cards which are really amazing and can actually help you get off those flip effects pretty easily and also perform several locks. And we also have great spells and traps. They have great versatility. Like I mentioned, this deck actually has multiple iterations. You could also do the playstyle that revolves around ninja art cards, which I forgot to mention. But yeah, I guess I forgot because it was never used in the anime, I guess. This deck, anyways, this deck is fairly versatile given the many different iterations, as well as the iteration that revolves around the Ninja Arts cards. You could even play the Ninja Arts cards in Flip Effect variants of this deck. Also, this deck is fairly consistent due to cards like Hanzo, as well as Duplication, and several other new cards that you have. And this deck can swarm pretty easily now, and can also OTK thanks to this card, which is now one of my favorite cards in the game at the moment. And this deck can also set up good disruptions. The only con is it's a bit rough going second, because this deck mostly likes to focus on going first and setting up several interruptions, but it's not too bad going second. For power, I'd give this deck a 3 out of 5 since it can OTK. For defense, a 3 out of 5. For recovery, a 2 out of 5. For versatility, a 3 out of 5, potentially a 3.5 out of 5. And for consistency, I'd give this deck a 3 out of 5. Overall, I'd say that this deck is a tier 2.5 deck.
Believe it! Believe it!
You could basically pile it in and take certain decks by surprise, but I don't think it's as powerful enough to be considered a tier 2 deck. At best, I feel like it's around the rogue status. Next, we have Shiranui. And Shiranui, they're an Arc 5 archetype. They came out a long time ago. They're a zombie synchro oriented deck. Anyways, let's get started. For the pros, they have decent monsters. They have generic zombie support to work with. They have plenty of removal, granted. They're mostly destruction based, with the exception of this guy, who could basically just non-target spin cards into the deck. And then this deck also has decent recovery due to your Spectral Sword, as well as I think like a few other cards, in fact. Also, if you manage to banish several of your Shiranui monsters, you basically get to go off. Cons with this deck is this deck lacks versatility because, like I mentioned, its removal is mostly destruction based, and this deck can do things, but it is still pretty linear. This deck lacks swarming ability. Also, let me further elaborate when I said this statement that I did. I say it's pretty linear because even like the cards that allow you to do certain things, like you also have a defensive card. Like it's a trap. You basically banish a Shiranui monster you control and you could essentially negate damage. It's still linear because at the end of the day, you're still relying on the effects of your Shiranui monsters when banished. and their effects aren't all that diverse. Next, they lack swarming ability, ironically enough, for a synchro archetype. Because, I mean, most of your Shiranuis, they're basically normal summons, and the one Shiranui that actually allows you to special summon, or at least two, one requires graveyard setup and also requires you to wait a turn after it's sent to the graveyard, and the other is essentially a normal summon that can be stopped with an Ash. You also have the quick play spell, if I remember correctly, it still requires a lot of conditions, or some conditions to be met before you can actually special summon using that card's effect. This deck lacks consistency and search power because, yeah, if I recall, there's no search cards in this entire archetype. Also, this deck generally cannot play through more than one interruption. Usually, if you get Ash Blossom, if they Ash Blossom your Shire, you usually just have to set a bunch of cards and pass. Anyways, for power, I'd give this deck a 3 out of 5. For defense, I give it a 3 out of 5 due to some of your trap cards. They could also stop. They could also stop you from taking damage as well as provide multiple disruptions. For recovery, I'd give this deck a 3 out of 5 purely because of. How am I blanking on its name? Spectral Sword. Yeah. And for versatility, I give it a 2.5 out of 5. 3 out of 5 if you count the zombie support. And for consistency, I'd give this deck a 2 out of 5 because this deck doesn't really have a good search card. And when it came to the new Shiranuis support that Konami came out with, it was pretty ass. So I'd give this deck a tier 3. Anyways, tell me what you guys think about Shiranuis and the new ninjas. And it's been me, your boy Blagetsuga. And I'm out.
You're all free now!